Mitchell's vs. the Machines released in 2021, early 2021, after being pushed by a bunch of COVID delays and everything. It was directed by Mike Rianda. He worked on Gravity Falls, apparently a great TV show. I know I've seen like a few episodes. I was more of a Phineas and Ferb guy, which kind of I feels like has a similar niche where it's like a really well written, just kids show that everyone can enjoy, even like parents and adults like sing their praises about. So yeah, it kind of related, but I've heard that just Gravity Falls, just like so cleverly crafted, just so enjoyable in general. And the big names, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. So yeah, they're just like the producers behind it. And so they went on to do a few features. They did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then they did Into the Spider-Verse, and then this was their project after they did Into the Spider-Verse. And you can definitely tell with some of the animation style that goes with to this movie. And I think just like they always have a distinct animation style just in general, because there's a bit of like comic book, comic book, little different than comic bookness to the Mitchells versus the Machines with all of the like animations that pop up. It's very modern, it's very flashy. But Spider-Verse definitely had a very distinct comic book look. And like I always love the story in Spider-Verse where it was like Miles Morales in it is shot, or is not shot, I guess, is just like portrayed at a lower frame rate throughout the movie. But when he finally realizes his powers, he's actually at 24 frames per second, just like everyone else. So it's just like facts like that just makes like the animation behind it and just the love that goes behind these movies like just so apparent, which is awesome. So yeah, Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, they're just yeah, knocking it out of the park with a lot of their stuff. And yeah, they did this, and it's yeah, just a great, solid, fresh kids movie. Without going into spoilers yet, I think that this movie is just like, it's a perfect, fresh movie for kids. And I think you really, really do have to remember that when you're watching this movie, it still is for kids. And I think they definitely realize that because there are so many plot holes. There's a lot of plot holes or a lot of moments in this where you're like, okay, they would have like actually just been torn into shreds like quite a few times in this movie. And there's like moments in the movie where it's like, how did you get there so fast? It just doesn't make sense. A lot of things just like don't add up with just the actual, if you're relating it to real life, but it's not real life. It's a movie. It's borderline a comic book movie, just with all the style and pizzazz it has. And you just have to remember that when you're going into it. And overall, I think why this movie works compared to a lot of other kids' movies that are coming out, Emoji Movie. Oh, sorry. But yeah, I mean, Sony made this movie, and they also were behind Emoji Movie. And it's two movies that tackle the topic of technology in the modern age very, very differently. And this one just absolutely knocks it out of the park. And it's interesting to think about why this one knocks it out of the park. Okay, I'm sorry. I know. Emoji Movie, like absolutely god tier. I mean, Patrick Stewart as Poop. I actually did laugh at Patrick Stewart as Poop. So, I mean, I'll give it that. It got one laugh out of me. The reason why this movie works so well is because it's just more human. The actual relationships between the family is just so much more apparent, and there are like they have moments in the movie where they just like sit down and they have these more dramatic moments that make you feel. And movies, I think in general, the moments that make you feel the most are moments about characters either mourning, having troubles with other people. It's always person on person that is the most emotional, and Emoji Movie had like almost none of that. And this movie was full of it. It's about a family, and they use the metaphor. They just use the robot apocalypse and this road trip just as a giant metaphor for their family dynamic, their family unit, and just having this plot device and using it to explore their family and eventually bring them closer together and understand each other. Because at the beginning of the movie, and even in the trailer, there's the scene where it's like dad comes in, he's like, all right, no phones, everybody. You guys all have phones. Family eye contact. And they're struggling to make eye contact. And they can't get through to each other. It's just a metaphor for how they can't connect, which is funny because the Mitchells vs. the Machines was the original title for the movie. but then they were going to change it and they were going to make it called, I think, Connected. And that's just like cheesy one word title that just like yells the theme of the movie right at you. Mitchell's vs. the Machines, just such a great title, in my opinion. Glad that they changed it back. But I mean, yeah, in general, using technology as a metaphor for like human connection and how everybody's on their phone is a trope that is overused, and a lot of people just roll their eyes at it. And like the dad not understanding technology, and like the kids just on their phones all the time, and it is an overdone trope. But I think that the reason that it works in this movie, again, is because the dad's whole deal is not that technology is bad. It's that technology is the barrier that's getting in the way of him connecting with his family. And I know that's kind of like the deeper theme that goes along with a lot of like technology related subjects, and that can be very stale at sometimes. But there always is some truth to these giant overarching cliches. Like they became a cliche for some reason. And it is true. It is sad to see like the way that technology has affected people. And in this movie, they highlight that, yeah, the family isn't really connecting very well at the beginning. And that happens a lot in real life. And it presents the themes in this package in a more flashy, a more smart, and just a more overall enjoyable, digestible way. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, these cliches, they all have some truth to them. And the best stories take these universal narratives and these universal, like, truths. Because so many movies, they play along the same themes. That's why there's so many themes that are like, you identify the same themes in a lot of different movies. It's because they're universal truths, right? So, and yeah, all I'm trying to say is that the fact that this story, it takes these universal themes and it makes it more complex and more digestible. They use the story to analyze these themes through the characters, because saying it outright, technology is bad, technology makes us less connected, is, you can eye roll at it. It's like, I want to make a movie about technology and how it affects people. It's like, okay, that's been done a trillion times. But if you package it in a unique and creative way, and that gets the message across. And the fact that this is a kids movie, I think that lends a lot to why this specific story works so well. Because again, road trip movie where a family like gets connected, not that unique. It has a lot of like superhero vibes to it. Like the beginning of the trailer feels very superhero-y, and it's clearly, yeah, they're playing on the apocalypse. It's kind of like Age of Ultron for kids. And I mean, that's not terribly unique. AI Uprising, we've seen quite a few of those at this point. But the heart of this movie, the just overall writing of the characters, yeah, the father-daughter dynamic was hard-hitting in this movie. And even though, like I said, some of the plot points are a bit like not too realistic, a bit eye-rolly, a bit convenient, especially with some of like the camcorders that they have and the replay function on those. That was abused a bit for some emotional impact. But again, it's a kids movie. It doesn't have to make 100% sense. And just the style and the fact that she's like this quirky LGBT film nerd going to film school, trying to find her people. Her movies were so fun, and like the style of the movie with like her commentary and just like the edits and like the kind of like Spider-Verse comic booky visuals to it. That was so fun as well. And yeah, her movies were so cool. And it's like her movies were just so sick. They were like, the way they were edited is like absolutely crazy. The animation was crazy. It's like when there was that one flashback and she showed it to like her grade 3 class with that burger dancing, that was good stuff. She did not do that in grade 3. She definitely got some outside help. She definitely did. But her movies, yeah, they were awesome. And yeah, I think it's a great coming of age story for a film kid. And her character, maybe it's just because like a lot of people who love this movie. Okay, you know what? I'm trying to identify my bias here because a lot of people that I know who like this movie are also film kids, and it's almost like we feel seen with this movie. But it was still a lot of fun to use those filmmaking aspects, even though it doesn't really have too much to do with like the robot apocalypse and everything. It was still fun. I guess it kind of did directly affect the narrative near the end. Spoilers, going into spoilers now, where they play the dog cop, and then the AI can't identify whether the dog is a dog, a pig, or a loaf of bread. That was pretty funny though. I did like it. It's like one of those things where it's like, you have to realize it's a kids' movie. Again, yeah, that's the thing that's going to undo the robot apocalypse. This dog, sure, kids' movie, but it was still kind of pleasant. And it's like, the comedy in this movie, there is a bit of like cringiness with the technology bad humor and the memes and the yelling gorilla on the dad face. But saying that, I thought it was really funny. Specifically, those kind of cringy moments. Because I think that there's like a life cycle to jokes where, here's how it goes. I always give the example of dabbing. Where dabbing started out and it's funny. It's this new thing. And then it gets so mainstream. At the time, it was like on in Vines, Instagram, like social media, making memes of dabbing. And it becomes so cringe. Everyone knows what it is at this point. And then there's a small resurgence where it's like, guys, I know dabbing is so bad out right now, but hey, and then it's a bit funny. And then it just like tanks. It's like nobody cares about dabbing anymore. And then once it hits that low point where it's just absolutely out of everybody's mind, it doesn't matter anymore, not mainstream, its stock skyrockets. I think dabbing now is hilarious. I made a commercial and it had dabbing in it. And I don't know. I just think like dabbing has been out of people's minds for so long that I think it's hilarious now. And that's the life cycle of jokes. And so all of this talk about dabbing, just because I wanted to talk about I've had this conversation with multiple people, relating it back to this like technology humor. And I think that the animal memes, which maybe if it came out in like 2012 with that gorilla doing the yell on the dad's face, it would be like, okay, yeah, taking an animal, making it a meme. Yeah, we've seen this a million times this generation. Like, please get something new. But it's kind of gotten stale. And it's like this whole thing where it's adults writing for kids and the disconnect between the adults and the now generation kids. And maybe it's because, you know what, I'm identifying now that maybe it's because I'm an adult now. Maybe kids don't actually find it funny, but I think that that animal meme was really funny. Some of the technology humor in this was pretty funny. The dad writing in www.dot. Come on, it's comedy gold. Like I said, the reason why I think it's funny is because it's gotten past that point of where it was cringy and overused, and with adults writing for kids, the disconnect there has become funny to me as I've gotten old. And I think that's what I'm identifying right now, is because that inherently difficult task that always seems to not work and always stands out when it doesn't work. You always identify, these people writing for high schoolers don't talk like this anymore, things like that. It's become, I think I'm identifying the disconnect, and the disconnect is what's making it funny. So maybe the technology humor in this movie doesn't land for everybody, but I think it's landing for me just because I'm finding that disconnect and relating it to that phenomenon of the life cycle of jokes. I've gotten I've dove way too far into this analysis of the technology humor of this movie. But at the end of the day, I thought it was funny. The movie doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. There is, yeah, like I said, I'm totally going full into spoilers right now, but like just the fact that they're the last humans alive, no way, no shot. The fact that they travel, like their travel path makes absolutely no sense. They stopped at like the Grand Canyon and like Niagara Falls, and like the speed at which they're traveling, they find their like neighbors at this random dinosaur rest stop. The fact that like all these humans are being like in these pods being flown to these ships in that matter of time, and yeah, they're the last people alive, like no way. And then when they're going up, they've sabotaged Star Wars style that like pod that's bringing them up to the giant like diamond thing, and then they fall and they don't die. Sure. Yeah. When the dad just absolutely demolishes the car. Yeah, sure. Them flying on those robots. Okay, I'm just identifying all the ways they should have died. Somebody make a supercut of like all the times that they should have died in this movie. But again, like I'm saying, I'm trying to wrap things up here, but I just keep going on tangents. Yes, some unrealistic things. You have to remember, this is a kids' movie, but it is so much fun. It's filled with so much heart. Like the actual connection between the family is what matters, and like a story like this with all of its style, it needs some substance to back it up. And I think the family dynamic definitely has that substance, where it's like you have the actual hard-hitting emotional beats of this family like trying to connect to each other in this age where it's more difficult to do so. And it's all about, yeah, it's the dad. He wasn't really afraid of everybody being on their phones all the time and just not paying attention. And like specifically with the daughter, he wasn't afraid of her leaving and becoming her own person. He was just afraid of that if she did leave, that he would lose her forever because of their current disconnect. And he just, yeah, he's an outdoorsman by trade. And yeah, the phone seemed to be the barrier, and it's like that's what he was latching onto. Whereas he just had to be a dad, just connect to her. But again, me saying that, that's the reason why it works. That's the reason why it's not cringy. And that's the reason why the style of this movie shines. And of course, like the animation, huge props. And like the writing was genuinely a lot of fun. And the giant Furby was pretty funny. I'll say that. Giant Furby, it very, very Toy Story. Like this movie is it's like Age of Ultron mixed with Toy Story mixed with, what's a road trip movie? Green Book. Okay, no, not Green Book. Not Green Book. But still. Okay, I've been trying to wrap this up for the last 5 minutes. Overall, this movie, you have to remember that it's a kid's movie, but it has a lot of heart to it. The style is really, really fun. The like technology humor, I think, hits for me just because some of the cringy moments I find I find pretty funny, but there definitely is some genuinely funny moments in the writing, and it's just a refreshing take on this kids movie, whereas a lot of kids movie these days can feel very formulaic, feel very stale, but it does feel modern enough, even with some of that disconnect of adults writing for kids, that kids are definitely going to get they're going to love this film, and then adults can also find a lot of enjoyment in this with its style and just like, yeah, the universal, like the actual hard-hitting themes to it. And so yeah, a lot of fun. If you can't tell, I like the movie. I would recommend it. And the post-credit scenes with the cast pictures was awesome. It's like the movie ended, I was like, okay, the finale's like fine. The finale's not the best. And then I like watched the whole credits with the pictures of all of the cast, and it was so sweet. It fits perfectly in with the coming of ageness of her moving off to college and everything. And yeah, the family dynamic, the pictures at the end were so good. Every movie should do that. Instead of just having the names of the cast, show their pictures. It was so sweet. But yeah, really, really liked Mitchell's vs. the Machines. Highly recommend it. Go watch it. Yeah, so next week on November 21st, I believe, we'll be doing this film, Samba Traore. I might be saying it wrong, but hey, I'll watch the movie and learn if I'm saying it right. But yeah, it's an African thriller crime movie. It's on Canopy, so that's how I'm gonna watch it, and it seems pretty cool. Doesn't have too many views here on Letterboxd, but I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, it's just one I found while I was exploring Canopy, and caught my eye, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. 92. I like old 90s crime movies, so could be fun. So